Välkomna tillbaka till Aktiespararna och Aktiedagen här i Stockholm. Vi fortsätter med ett nytt företagspresentation via Zoom och det är Expres2ion Biotech och det är CEO Frandsen. Hör du mig, Bent?
Yeah, I hear you, Eric.
Yes, and we will do this in English, I guess.
We will. Thank you.
All right. Go ahead. The stage is yours.
Excellent. Thank you very much. My name is Frandsen. I'm the CEO of Expres2ion Biotechnologies, and I've been looking very much forward to making this presentation to you all. We have around 100 participants. It's virtual, and here we go. First, a forward-looking statement and disclaimer. We'll present this presentation after this and carefully go through this. Our equity story: we are a Scandinavian clinical stage biotechnology company. We were founded in 2010 in Denmark based on a proprietary insect cell-based protein expression system that has worked really well for us over the 11 years of existence. We got listed at the Nasdaq First North Growth Market in Stockholm in 2016, becoming a public company, starting out with a value of 4 million and being around that for a number of years. And since we started on a COVID-19 vaccine project 1 year ago, we have increased our market value to now more than 100 million euro. We created in 2017 Aktiedagen together with a research group out of Professor Alice Salantis group at Copenhagen University in Denmark. Aktiedagen has a proprietary capsid virus-like particle technology, which is an important part of our pipeline. We have moved from being primarily a service provider company to a fully pipeline-owned company here in the last year, and we have done significant progression on this with our 2 lead candidates, COVID-19 project as well as a breast cancer vaccine project that I will be telling you much more about here. We are fully funded following a successful rights issue in the autumn 2020, and also with some exciting cash flow opportunities ahead of us in connection with the COVID-19 vaccine. This is the pipeline as it looks now. So we are focusing on COVID-19, breast cancer, influenza, and malaria. Most importantly is that we have actually progressed into clinical stage with the COVID-19 project. Last week, we announced starting the first clinical phase 1/2 trial in the Netherlands with one of our partners there. For the breast cancer vaccine project, we have last month announced that we now have fully in-licensed this breast cancer opportunity from our joint venture partner at Aktiedagen. I'll be telling you much more about these 2 projects shortly, as well as, of course, the status of the influenza and malaria projects. We have partnered around all of these, getting grant funding for these. We have Bavarian Nordic as an exclusive licensee for the COVID-19 project. And let's move into that COVID-19 project. This is a capsid virus-like particle-based COVID-19 vaccine utilizing Expres2ion's insect cell-based protein production system for the antigen generation that we're coupling on the surface of a virus-like particle. It has been fully funded until and including this phase 1/2 trial that we have now embarked on. And we have seen, since we started this project a year ago, remarkable preclinical data. We can say it has a very strong immune response. We have boosted immunogenicity with this in proof of concept studies in mice, most recently shared in a Nature Communications publication as shown on the right. We have a high level of neutralizing antibodies compared with, for example, DNA or messenger RNA vaccines and even other technologies. It offers a single shot protection with a long-lasting immune response. That's unusually good. And we have some remarkable stability data, so it's easily handled even at room temperatures. And we're able to address also mutants with this vaccine as well. The clinical phase 1/2 trial that now has been initiated last week will enroll 42 volunteers in the Netherlands at our partner site, Radboud University Medical Center. We will announce some initial safety data here shortly within April. The interesting data also coming out of the secondary efficacy parameters will be announced later in June 2021 when we have those data available. All in all, the strong immunogenicity, the ease of clinical administration of this, and the drug product handling and adaptiveness of the platform actually all are factors of what we describe as a second generation COVID-19 vaccine. As mentioned at the beginning, Bavarian Nordic is an exclusive licensee for this project. They have sponsored on their own behalf preclinical studies in non-human primates, in monkeys. Really encouraging data shown here on the right as well. And in connection with that, last week, actually, they also issued a private placement and raised 1.1 billion Danish kroner, of which 200 million Danish kroner, or about 270 million Swedish kroner, will go for this project to support a phase 1/2 clinical study that they will sponsor themselves, as well as scale up of manufacturing. Bavarian Nordic are really committed to this. This is actually showing the economics of our relations between the joint venture AdaptVac and the license agreement that they have with Bavarian Nordic revolving the VLP technology. And then Expression has an agreement based on the insect cell-based technology in the COVID-19 vaccine with AdaptVac. So this is how it works. Bavarian Nordic will be paying pipeline milestone payments and sales milestone payments and sales royalties to AdaptVac. And from AdaptVac side, there will go some commercial milestone payments up to 2 million euro or 21 million Swedish kroner to Expression. And more importantly, also double-digit percentages of AdaptVac's royalties, which are in the single to double-digit range. In the bottom here is an example of how the economics work. Say if Bavarian Nordic, they make this a blockbuster, and that's very reasonable to assume. And these royalty numbers here are from an Aktiesparernes Analyseguiden that was published in January. Say AdaptVac obtained 10% royalty, they could get 100 million euro, excluding the milestone payments, and Expression could get, let's say, 11%, as Aktiesparernes have estimated. From AdaptVac, that would lead into 11 million euro, 110 million SEK. This is an annual payment from an annual sales level, and this is excluding the 34% ownership that Expression has of AdaptVac. That was the COVID-19 project. Let's move quickly into the HER2 project, breast cancer vaccine project, where there's comprehensive preclinical proof of concept data on this concept that has been published also in the paper by Professor Palladini, and which has been announced on earlier occasions. Here we can prevent tumor formation and improve survival in mice, which is very clear from the graph to the right, and we see superiority to the standard of care treatment trastuzumab, and even effectiveness in trastuzumab-resistant tumor cells. We have in-licensed the technology for making this breast cancer vaccine from AdaptVac. We announced that in February, and we now have our own vaccine candidate that we call ES2B-C001. It has a solid preliminary biophysical profile. And more importantly, we have just a few weeks ago announced a research collaboration agreement with University of Bologna. They were actually the same researchers, world-class, state-of-the-art, competent scientists working on this with Copenhagen University when it was there. They had the transgenic mice to support the preclinical studies that we will now be conducting here in 2021. And we expect to get preclinical proof of concept data from our lead candidate here by the end of this year. Moving ahead towards a clinical stage product, we embark on the discussions with the regulatory authorities. In due time, we are reaching out to key opinion leaders to support the clinical development program that we will assume. A first clinical phase 1 safety and immune response trial is expected to start in Q1 2023, where we will be exploring parameters for immunization success. Based on the product profile, we actually anticipate that this can replace current HER2-directed agents like trastuzumab and pertuzumab, both in metastatic and later adjuvant settings, potentially leading to blockbuster sales scenarios. And in this connection with this program, we will be looking for co-development partners as we progress with this project. This is showing a number of deals in this field in breast cancer. Just to give you a flavor in terms of partnering scenarios, that there are certainly high-valued licensing deals around here, and we will be pursuing them as we move along. With respect to our pipeline projects at influenza and malaria, they have actually been affected by the COVID-19 situation in 2020. So not that much progress, but I'm very pleased to say that with the influenza project that we do in an EU-India partnership that is supported by the European Union, here we develop a subunit flu vaccine with a certain adjuvant. We have completed the vaccine design, and we have selected the lead candidate, and we do intend to move into preclinical activities here later this year with the partners in this consortium. On the malaria, here we have 2 clinical stage projects in clinical phase 2 on the RH5 project with the blood stage malaria vaccine, which is run together with the University of Oxford and the Jenner Institute, as well as the clinical phase 1 stage malaria project, which is focusing on VAR2-CSA, an agent important for pregnancy-associated or placenta-borne malaria. And the researchers here have been more focused on COVID-19 during 2020, but I'm pleased to say that here in 2021, there will be initiatives again to seek non-dilutive funding so we can move these clinical projects ahead. So looking again at our pipeline, I think we have progressed well since 2020, and we are addressing high-value markets. That's for sure, multi-billion markets in this connection. Just very briefly to describe the technologies that we use, we have the insect cell-based system that we call Expres. It works really well in expression of complex proteins. It's very expeditious and generate high quality protein. And we have it clinically validated again now for another round here with COVID-19, and it's very cost competitive. And we have used it in more than 300 occasions with clients with a more than 90% success rate. With the VLP technology that resides at DAPBAC, this was invented in Copenhagen University. This takes a virus-like particle, non-viral molecular structure with no viral elements in it, and we can attach any protein of interest on that. And this is what we use to attach SARS-CoV-2 antigens generated in the Expres system for the COVID-19 vaccine, and HER2 antigen for the breast cancer vaccine. The good thing is here we can control the direction of the proteins we attach to the surface, and with a very high density display, it leads into increased immunogenicity, faster immune response, focused immune response, and not least longevity of response. Shifting gear to our financials. Here we see the most recent annual figures with respect to our revenues, our net results, and our cash position. And if you look at our revenues since our IPO in 2016, we have been able to grow the sales considerably since we IPO'd in 2016. And that's all very good. We have a lot of clients interested in the Expres system. We also have a lot of grant projects, and most recently in 2020, of course, we have grant revenues also from the EU Horizon 2020 projects that we're involved in this. The net results show that we are incurring a higher loss, especially here in 2020, which is, of course, due to our focus now on pipeline generation. And this shows that we have a burn rate on now making these high-value pipeline projects. The good thing is about our cash position, as alluded to in the beginning, we made an important rights issue here in September, October last year, and raised 131 million Swedish krona at that point. At the end of 2020, we have 107 million Swedish krona in our bank, which can all lead us into the clinical stage with our breast cancer vaccine product here in the beginning of 2023. In connection with the rights issues, there were also 2 warrant programs associated with that. One can be exercised here in April next month, called TO4. The other one, called TO5, has its exercise window in September. With this exercise period, we are able to raise potentially up to 40 million in Swedish krona in gross proceeds here in April, and potentially up to 45 million Swedish krona in gross proceeds in September. I've shown here the mechanisms of the TO4 program. We will be communicating much more about that here in the second half of March as we approach the window, which is during 12th until 26th of April. With the current share price, which is in around 38 to 40, and the strike price here can be between 6 and 22. We assume that we can generate the highest gross proceeds from this exercise. We have a new management team in place here. I became CEO of the company in December 2019. Keith Alexander, our CFO, joined 1st of October 2020. And then we have 3 new members in connection with the fact that our CSO, Dr. Wien de Jong, moved over to become CEO at Aktiedagen. But also actually still has a post in our newly established scientific advisory board at Expres2ion. The 3 new members are Max, a PhD in biochemistry, who's been in the company for 8 years now and has been instrumental in generating our downstream process development activities, and has a strong background both in cancer and infectious diseases research. Dr. Mette Thorn and Professor Lars Petersen joined here 1st of February. Mette is head of preclinical development, PhD in immunology, and a very strong driver in connection with the breast cancer vaccine project that we have now embarked on the preclinical activities. The same goes for Lars, who's a medical doctor and doctor in immunopharmacology, and is leading our clinical development plans. We have a strong news flow here in the next 1 to 2 years. A lot of that is driven by ABNCoV2, our COVID-19 vaccine, which just started the clinical trials last month. We'll get back here next month with the initial safety data. Good thing is that Bavarian Nordic have decided to sponsor a second phase 1/2 trial, which will be in several hundred test subjects, and that will be started already here in the beginning of Q2 and read out in Q3. We expect the vaccine, if all goes well, to move into a phase 3 clinical trial by Bavarian Nordic in the second half of this year, potentially leading into a commercially available vaccine already in 2022. At the breast cancer vaccine project, we executed the in-licensing deal with Aktiedagen last month, and we are progressing on the preclinical activities here in 2021, and aim to obtain proof of concept with our lead candidate here at the end of the year. And then we'll progress with our scale-up activities in 2022 to get clinical supply so we can initiate the first clinical trial in the beginning of 2023. Further progresses are being made within influenza and malaria as well. So lastly, just to recap, we have a quite clear road plan for developing our pipeline assets towards major value inflection points here. We will continue to focus on partnering activities for financing and risk sharing of assets. We will strengthen our revenues continuously with search for new partners and recurring partners and clients. We will continue to be committed to raise non-dilutive funding through grants. And we also remain open to identify new assets and partners that have high value synergy to our technology platform. That's it. Thank you very much.
Hello, thank you, Bent.
I hear.
You can hear me?
I hear you.
All right. I would like to start off with the COVID-19 project. How do you, because this is a very unusual case, the way the project is sped up, so to say, how do you assess like the biological and regulatory risks in this kind of project when you have this short time period?
Well, it's been a risky project from the outset. We started announcing this in the first week of February in 2020. We knew we had the technologies to do something about COVID-19. And then it became a pandemic the months after. That helped sponsor the project from EU Horizon 2020. So that leveraged some of the riskiness in this. Then we got Bavarian Nordic on board over the summer, another leverage of the risk. And now last week we started the first clinical trial. So I think we are bashing well with the riskiness of this project.
Yeah, and how do you see as a potential producer of this vaccine? How do you see? Do you have any concern of a third or fourth wave of COVID, so to say?
Well, in general terms, COVID-19 will be here for a long time still.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so, and that's why I'm describing this also as a second generation COVID-19 vaccine, because we're able to address longevity of the protection and provide a one-shot only vaccine, and we can address mutants as well with the effectiveness of this vaccine, and we're already working also on antigens of mutants from South Africa, Brazil, and UK, you name them. And so we think this is very adaptive for this purpose. And we don't know with the first generation vaccines to which extent they will endure a long-term protection. And we know they have to be taken 2 times. We know the first ones, they have to be kept at -20 or even -80 degrees Celsius. Ours can be kept at refrigerator temperature and has stability at room temperature. Even up to +49 degrees is still stable. So it has a potential also to address tropical markets, for example.
How do you take on this challenge of actually deliver this kind of drug to the market? Like, do you have the capability to do it? Like, can you meet the demand?
That's why we have made the agreement with Bavarian Nordic, which is a fully integrated vaccine company, being one of the largest manufacturers within vaccines and also having a large distribution network. Expres2ion is still a small biotech company. Let's face it, we are 20 scientists working out of DTU Science Park in Expres2ion, but we have really exciting technologies that can address not only COVID-19, but also other important disorders like breast cancer. And don't forget the influenza activities that we have ongoing as well. We thought a few years back that influenza would be a new pandemic, potential pandemic, and then COVID-19 came and overruled that. We're still working on influenza also to address future scenarios in this field.
I have a question here from actually a shareholder, and it's a long. I will read it, and you can answer it later here afterwards. Since Expres2ion acquired the rights for breast cancer vaccine candidate, you also decreased your interest in AdaptVac to 34% of the shares, according to the deal. But in the same time, the royalties and milestones from the COVID-19 project would not be affected. the question is, do Expression own 50% of the potential cash that builds up in AdaptVac from the COVID vaccine, or 34%?
Let's look at. Let me try to describe the mechanisms that I alluded to earlier. AdaptVac get royalties from Bavarian Nordic sales. Expression get royalties from AdaptVac revenues. So that is none affected by the ownership. So the licensing deals between Bavarian Nordic and AdaptVac, and the licensing deal between AdaptVac and Expression, will provide us the royalty irrespective of any ownership. On top of that, we own 34% of AdaptVac. So I think that's that high has high value.
And it's like, for now you are well funded, but for how long will the capital last, looking at current burn rate?
We definitely have cash for some years, and that's going to address our breast cancer vaccine project primarily.
And that's a good segue to the next question I have here. Like, obviously, what would you see beside this COVID-19 project, like the big value driver going forward for Expres2ion Biotech?
The breast cancer project is a very big value driver in that connection. There are no breast cancer vaccines on the market. We have the potential to replace standard of care treatments and work in combination with the breast cancer vaccine treatments that are out there. So we are addressing a multi-billion-dollar market where there's still a high need for superior cancer vaccine projects like ours. Influenza, of course, is also very important as we move along. And malaria, we are at clinical stage with these projects. We're a bit dependent on our academic collaborations in terms of the financing of those, but it's been extremely well funded by grant awards over the years, and I don't see why that shouldn't take place again here in the next couple of years.
All right. And that was all I have for us. Thank you very much, Bent. I think I speak for all of us, even the non-shareholder, that you have good success with the COVID-19 project, and I wish you good luck.
Thanks a lot, Eric. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.